we'll begin with Adam. So he's from Close Guitars. He's the CEO. I actually worked for him for a little bit. It was a lot of fun to work there. Building the guitars was actually a lot of fun. They've done multiple Kickstarters, raised over $1 million. How many backers? I think about 1,000?
Close to 800.
1,800, way more. So we're going to hear from him. I think we're going to watch a little video, right, first, to begin with. And then we'll go ahead and speak.
We are finally here to present the Klose ukulele. Klose Guitars has created the ultimate durable, high-quality sounding carbon fiber travel guitar. We've sent thousands of these guitars to over 70 countries and all 50 states. From day one, people have been repeatedly asking us when we're coming out with the ukulele. So we've taken everything we've learned until now and have finally applied it to the most popular travel instrument. Our ukuleles are handcrafted for maximum precision. The hollow body and thin soundboard of wooden ukuleles are the first to crack or warp. We ultimately strengthen these weakest links by making them out of durable and lightweight carbon fiber, ensuring the ukulele can survive in any rugged environment. Carbon fiber is a very strong material that is used in extreme industries because of its high strength to weight ratio and its resistance to temperature and humidity changes. The Klose ukulele is not just durable though. It also sounds amazing because the soundboard has been engineered from an innovative composite sandwich panel that has the flexibility to resonate and produce a great sound and tone. Don't take our word for how durable the Klose ukulele is. See for yourself. We designed several tests to simulate more extreme variations of situations you might encounter while adventuring with your ukulele. The results came in, and it was actually nearly impossible to break this thing. When it comes down to playing your ukulele every day, you want your ukulele to feel nice to your fingers so that you keep coming back, which is why we pay particular attention to filing the nut and leveling and polishing the frets to produce superb playability. So say goodbye to worrying about temperature or humidity damaging your ukulele. Carbon fiber is what modern jet planes are made out of, meaning you will be left with a great sounding ukulele that will last you for generations to come.
Cool. All right, my name's Adam Klosowiak. I'm one of the founders of Close Guitars. I founded it with my brother and another co-founder, Jacob Sheffield. And my brother is coming tonight, but he got in a car accident right before getting here. But it was just a bumper, not a big deal. So he'll be on the panel. So yeah, Close Guitars started 4 years ago exactly, February 2015. My brother was in the SIOY competition, and so he competed with the first Close travel guitar. And we've come a long way since then. So today I'll be focusing on crowdfunding and how we leverage crowdfunding to launch our company, and how you might be able to do that with whatever ideas you guys have. And all in all, we ended up doing 6 crowdfunding campaigns. We have a couple more planned that we're hoping to launch in the next few months. So what I'll do is I'll kind of overview how we went from concept to actually launching during the campaign, post-campaign, and then actually executing and building whatever idea you're planning on building. If anyone has questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand and ask. I think this is probably most helpful and interactive. So feel free to stop me whenever. So first, I want to kind of preface whatever I say, take it with a grain of salt. Every product is different. So what worked for us might be a little different for whatever idea you have. I've tried to kind of extrapolate general concepts that are applicable. But again, you should talk to a lot of people before you ever make any decisions. So crowdfunding is great for a few reasons. 3 mainly. I would say product market fit is one of the most important ones. So If you have an idea, you might think it's amazing, but everyone else in the market might not. And so it's a fairly low-risk way of determining if it is a good idea. Before you purchase massive quantities of inventory, spend too much money on marketing, you can launch an idea and have pretty robust feedback with low effort. So product market fit is key with crowdfunding. It's something that you don't get if you have an angel investor or you provide your own funding. You get the capital, but you don't necessarily get a product market fit. So that's the first thing. The second thing is capital. Obviously, you need money to start your company and launch your idea, and you get that without giving equity away. So it's a great way to raise capital, and again, fairly low cost to raising that capital. And the third thing I would say is customers. So if you raise money from an angel, or if you already have your own money, you don't necessarily need to give away equity with your own money, but you won't have any customers, and you still need to do all that work to get customers. So you get that with a crowdfunding campaign, and not only that, you get customers that are very patient and willing to give you feedback, and they feel like they're part of the team that's launching this idea. So you get these three things with crowdfunding. I think it's the best way to start consumer product companies. It's not necessarily the best way to launch a more capital-intensive business or other forms of businesses, but if you do have a physical product or an idea like a music album or something like that, it is a really good way to launch. So there are several elements in crowdfunding that I want to go over. First is the idea, both from a product and a market standpoint. From a market standpoint, whatever idea you have, I think it's extremely important to do a very rigorous analysis of the market, and a few different elements are in that. For us, our first product was a travel guitar. So, first we wanted to know how big is the travel guitar market. Is the travel guitar market even the target audience, or is it the whole guitar market? Is it acoustic guitars? Is it electric guitars? Asking questions about, who are you selling this to? And once you identify that, you need to figure out how big is that market. And really, that idea is very important, because if the market is too small to begin with, before you pour all this effort into it, you need to think about, is it even worth my time to sink all my effort into it? So breaking down the market, the way we did that was we decided that a travel guitar actually is a great guitar for people who travel, but also people who don't travel and just play at home and want a durable instrument. So carbon fiber guitars, as you saw in some of the videos, or in the video, it's great for preventing active damage. If you drop it, it'll be fine. But it's also good for preventing passive damage. So you have over 100 pounds of tension on the strings on a steel string guitar, and that's pulling on a wooden bridge, which, if you fast forward 10 years, that's a lot of warping that would happen to a wooden soundboard. And our carbon fiber soundboard is designed such that this will most likely look the same in a few decades. It's the same material that high-end sports equipment's made out of: cars, airplanes. So in the beginning, we were thinking, yes, it's a travel guitar, which is great for traveling, but it's also good if you just want to keep your instrument at home, not humidify it. And not only that, but the acoustic guitar market and the electric guitar market were both markets that would enjoy playing a travel guitar. Even if you play an electric guitar, usually plugged in, if you're in a remote place without an amp, you're going to want to play on a guitar still. So identifying who the audience is, that was kind of step one. And then once we identified that, and in general, if you have that figured out, you want to start looking at who's the competition and what is the competition doing. I think the best way, when you're launching a product, the best thing to do is to not reinvent the wheel. If there are competitors in your space, they've probably thought a lot about all these issues and how to position their product. So I think analyzing whatever your competitors are doing, analyze what they do well, what they do poorly, and copy what they do well and don't do what they do poorly is generally a good strategy. For us, we looked at a ton of different competitors and a lot of different companies that weren't necessarily in our space, but were in a space that we somehow felt relevant to. So we did look at competing carbon fiber guitar companies, but we also looked at wooden guitar companies because obviously if someone's evaluating buying a carbon fiber guitar, a wooden guitar is very much in the equation. We also looked at a lot of e-commerce brands that had nothing to do with guitar. So we looked at Warby Parker, we looked at Bonobos, we looked at Casper mattress, Purple mattress, and we thought, what are these companies doing really well that we can do that'll distinguish our guitar company in the guitar space. So that, yeah.
I have a quick question. What's the cost difference between carbon fiber and wood?
Yeah. Carbon fiber is generally a very expensive material to work with. You can have a really big range for both. It really comes down to the shape of your carbon fiber piece. Is it going to be, ours is really two pieces. It's a flat soundboard and the body. The body is essentially a bowl, so it's pretty easy to make a bowl and pretty easy to make a flat panel. If you have a more complex design like the neck, to make the neck out of carbon fiber would be much more complex. And so, depending on how many layers you have, so I don't have an exact number. And wood too, you can get an extremely vintage wood that makes a guitar that costs $25,000, or you can get cheap spruce and buy a $100 guitar or something. So the range varies. But yeah, so that's kind of the market, and then the other idea portion I would say is product. So before you launch your Kickstarter and before you sink too much effort into whatever you're doing, really think about the idea from a design standpoint, from a manufacturing standpoint, from a practicality standpoint. You might have an amazing idea, but if it's so difficult to make that you'll never actually make it, then that might not be the best idea to do. I think a lot of Kickstarters, one of the common pitfalls is they design and launch without thinking of execution and market and manufacturing. And so, they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's a famous Kickstarter for a cooler where they raised $12 million and then they never delivered because they just couldn't figure out manufacturing correctly. So you really need to think about holistically, there's this product, this is how you make it, this is where we can get the parts, these are some suppliers that supply those parts. I don't think before you launch is the point where you should have an extremely solidified supply chain necessarily, but I do think an initial research of is this supply chain even realistic is a good idea to do. Just so that if you are successful and you do raise money, you have a plan with where you start looking and building. So that is kind of before you actually start building a campaign. I would kind of do a lot of that market research. Yeah.
Would you recommend finding out the cost for the product, including that, and trying to figure out how much you should have for your goal?
Yeah, for sure. So I was going to talk about funding goal and pricing. There are several different ways to price. Obviously, you can price based on cost. You can price based on willingness to pay, and what the market is paying. For us, I think a combination of the two is always good. You need to have a certain margin that makes sense. If you're losing money on a sale, then that doesn't work. But if you somehow find a way to make something for $10 and everyone is paying $600, then there's no reason not to necessarily also use that price. So when we were pricing, we looked at competing travel guitars, and we knew we wanted to be the affordable carbon fiber guitar. That was sort of our whole premise. So Ian, who just stood up, my co-founder and brother, he made the first guitar, and his whole attitude behind the design was making it extremely practical. So a lot of guitars have a lot of excess design aspects that add time and labor and cost, and so we took out a lot of those things because other carbon fiber guitars cost $1,300 plus, and you can get a good travel guitar for $300. And really, from the very beginning, the question was, why are these guitars so expensive? They really don't have to be. So we kind of looked at the most popular travel guitars were $300 to $400, and we looked at $1,300 being the cheapest carbon fiber guitar. And so we priced ours initially too low. That was a lesson we learned in the next Kickstarters. We sold our first guitar for $380 because we wanted to be right on par with wooden competition. And now our base model costs $600. So we do believe there's a value add with carbon fiber, so the price increase is justified, but we're still less than half the price of carbon fiber competitors. So I think, yeah, you want to have a good idea to be in a range. I don't think you necessarily need a price per part and estimate labor time. I think the more you estimate, the better informed you are and the better chance you have of success. But if you're limited on time, have a ballpark and be confident in that ballpark. So yeah, once you have kind of the idea and you know there's potentially a market fit and you're committed to actually doing this Kickstarter, I think there are a bunch of different elements that you need to start working on. So there's the page, so the actual Kickstarter page. There's the video. There's your launch strategy. So the page and the video, two most important things. That is your entire Kickstarter. And then you need to have a launch strategy for day one. I'd say probably day 1 through 3 are pretty unique. And then during your campaign, finishing your campaign, and then there's the post campaign. So to break each one down, the page, there are all sorts of successful pages. I think they really can vary and are all over the board. What we did and what I recommend is find similar products to yours, or find pages that you really think look good. Yeah.
Are our slides supposed to be working?
Oh no, there's no slides.
There's no slides. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, didn't know.
That's
Thanks. I'm excited there.
You have a question?
Yeah, sorry to go back a little bit, but
Yeah.
Did you end up just breaking even on that $380 price point, just to kind of get your name out, or did you actually make some money on that?
So, I would say we probably broke even. It's hard to tell, and so I'll touch on the first Kickstarter, but it took us 8 months to build the first 70 guitars that we sold, and we were working for free during that time. So it's hard to actually cost that time. But yeah.
Do your guitars include a mold for the carbon fiber?
Do they include a mold?
Yeah, like to manufacture it?
Yeah. So to make the body, you need a mold. For the first around 2,000 instruments, we had polyester molds that we made, and we built the bodies that way, room temperature infusion. And now we have a supplier who uses a heat press, but it's also a mold. Yeah.
Did y'all include that when you're trying to figure out the price for your?
Yes and no. Our first Kickstarter was very uneducated, I would say. We sort of, we launched and thought, everyone was just going to buy this thing. We had a lot of family and friends, and I'll talk about actually launching a little more, but we had family and friends get us, day one, $5,000 out of a $15,000 goal, and then we flatlined for like 15 days. And we were like, why did everyone stop buying this? But yeah, you do want to think of all the costs, and we didn't even know what supply chain was when we launched. Yeah.
What did you end up raising for the first Kickstarter?
Yeah, so I should have started with an overview. So our first Kickstarter was $33,000 with 70 backers, or it was like 120, but 70 were guitars. Our second one was a 2.0 model of that instrument. So we relaunched it a year later with better parts and a better understanding of the product. That raised 103, I believe. And then we did an acoustic electric model 6 months later. That raised $303,000. That was the first time we worked with Indiegogo In Demand, which I'll also touch on. That's another crowdfunding program. And that raised another $70,000 on that product. And then The fourth campaign was different colors of our travel guitar, so we had 12 different colors. We really squeezed the travel guitar for all the different variations. And then the fifth campaign was the ukulele, which we tested launching on Indiegogo first. That one is actually still live in the in-demand program, and that has so far raised $282,000. And the sixth one was the full-size guitar, this one right here, and that one raised, I think, $127,000. So that was over the course of 3 years, all 6 of those. Yeah. But going back to the page, I think, again, don't reinvent the wheel. Find 5 to 10 campaigns that you think look really good. Break their campaigns down into sections. Generally you have an idea section. What is the product? You have an engineering section. How do you make this? Why is it unique? You have a team section. Who is your team? Why are you guys equipped to handle this better than the market at the current point? So you go through these pages and just break it down into elements. And then what I would do is just, take the pieces that you think look great, modify it to suit whatever your product is. I would make a checklist of all the things you need to make and just slowly start building out those graphics so that you can build out your page. The page is important for sure. You want to give a lot of information. I would say the video is probably the most important element. So you want the video and the page to be in sync. If someone wants to read more about something that you say in the video, definitely have a section where you elaborate in the page. The video really, it totally varies. It depends on, one, personal preference. In general, I would recommend having a shorter video. We sort of live in a short attention span world right now with the constant notifications. So I feel like 1 to 2 minutes is a good length. You want to pique someone's interest, give them the highlights, and end the video with them thinking, oh, I want to know more. Yeah?
I'm just curious on how much of like an emailing list you already had generated or had created.
Yeah, I'll get to actually launching and the different elements you need, but I will touch on that. So video, make it short, make it very emphatic. You don't want to have a dull video. I narrated some of our videos, and I generally think I have a pretty monotonous voice. And so for several of the campaigns, we found someone, like the one we watched, the ukulele, that guy has like a very upbeat and kind of high energy voice. So just make it interesting and captivating, and get the main point across, and make it stylish and make it very interesting. That's kind of the main point on the video. So now that you have your page and your video put together, you want to actually launch. And I think there are a ton of different things you need to think about launching. So yeah, you want a mailing list. You want to get all your family and friends on that mailing list. You want to start building that mailing list very early. If you're launching, I would say you want to start building that mailing list for 4 to 5 months before you actually launch. Ideally longer, but not too long at the same time, because if you tell someone you're going to launch something in a year, they'll probably forget about it a year from then. Family and friends are kind of the easiest thing to access. That's what we did with our first one, and that's pretty much all we did. We didn't go onto Facebook groups for guitars and post that we're going to launch something. We did reach out to blogs and press, but that wasn't really until later. So really try to get the word out and think about your product from every single aspect, not necessarily just whatever category is most obvious. So you would think that the guitar press is the only press that would be interesting for launching this, but we targeted the likes of, Business Insider or all business press and blogs, because we were trying to apply an e-commerce brand or e-commerce business model to guitars, which was unique. And so we thought that e-commerce press would be interested. We targeted guitars, we targeted different music groups. So now we have a ton of different categories that we targeted. Yeah.
So how hard, like, was it even possible on your first launch to kind of get that kind of press and that kind of publicity, or was it kind of like more down the road that you kind of had to?
Definitely down the road. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of these things we did not do on our first Kickstarter. It's definitely hard when you're launching your first one and you don't have that much to say for yourself, and you can't really prove to whatever press source you're reaching out to that you actually have potential. It's definitely tricky. But yeah, you need to try your best to convince them. The tricky thing with press is you need to think about it from their perspective. No one wants to write an article about a company that seems promising but then tanks and makes that press source look bad. So it does make sense that they're pretty risk averse. But yeah.
Would you recommend using a company like Funded Today to build an email list?
Yeah, so I was gonna touch. So we've never used Funded Today. We've used a different Kickstarter ad agency called Gelop. I do recommend using an agency like that. The only reason being, they do this all day, every day, and they've done it for years. And for them, it's executing a framework that works. I think it should be only a component of your strategy. You shouldn't rely on one of these companies entirely. It needs to work with your margins. I think Funded Today, I think they might have changed their
30%.
It's 30%? Yeah, 30% is insane, I think. I mean, yeah, they help you, but once you get your funding, you break it down by what's left. Kickstarter takes 5%, credit card fee takes 4%, Funded Today takes 30%, your cost of goods sold take 50%. You're left with almost nothing. And so if you look at it from that perspective, why even do anything? But sometimes the first Kickstarter isn't necessarily geared towards profitability. It's very valuable to have that product market fit, customers, and all that. So some elements of launching, so timeline, delivery of the product, estimate a realistic timeline, and then double it. Everyone, when you're starting out, thinks that they can do more than they actually can. And you will encounter challenges that you have no idea about until you launch. Problems will happen. Like I said, when we first launched, we didn't know what supply chain was. We sort of assumed that we would find a supplier for necks, we would send them our CAD file, and they would build a perfect neck and send it to us on time. And our neck supplier ended up being 8 months late, and the quality was way below what we were expecting. So we launched in June of 2015, our first one. We promised August of 2015 delivery, and we delivered April of 2016. So we were really late. It was pretty excruciating explaining to customers all the time why we're late. And we kept being told by our supplier that the product is coming, and then it wouldn't. We delayed our expectation like 8 times. Yeah.
Is that shipping from China?
That was shipping from China, yeah. Yeah.
Are you using that supplier anymore?
No, we're not. We've actually, the neck has been our most difficult supply chain piece, which is odd because you'd think the carbon fiber is the hardest thing to pull off. But we did just get neck parts today from a new supplier, and they are pretty good. So 4 years later, we figured out this.
Where are your new suppliers?
What are they?
Yeah, where are they?
Oh, where are they? Our suppliers are kind of all over. So some in the US, some in Korea, some in China, some in Canada. It really just depends where you can get the best price for the part that you need. Yeah. So timing is important. People are patient, but you don't want to use that patience too much. I do think there's kind of a moral and fiscal responsibility to delivering that product, whatever you're promising, and to do everything you can to deliver it on time. I think if you're late, definitely challenges come up. We were extremely late on the first one, but the second, third, and on, we were on time a lot of the times. And if we were late, it was, 2 months, 2 to 3 months. So, yeah.
Looking back in your, I guess your first Kickstarter and the troubles you were having with contracting some of the parts out, would you say it would be better for you to have visited those factories physically rather than online and just wait?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the cost of a flight to China, if you're in the US, the cost of the flight's $300. To China, it's maybe $1,500 if you book last minute. You can get one for $800. That cost compared to 6 months of stress and worrying and delays, not even comparable. So, but it makes sense when you first launch. You think it's not an option to fly there. That's what we thought. We just didn't even consider that really at the beginning. And $800 for a flight or $1,000 was a lot at the beginning. But I would recommend that for sure. You can solve a lot of things by just going there, staying for 2 weeks, iterating on the sample, getting it right, and then you save yourself a ton of time. Some other things with launching are, you want it to be multi-channeled, multi-pronged. So get your family and friends involved. Try to get whatever press you can involved. Try paid advertising. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on Google or Facebook to know if you have an effective ad. You can spend $5 on a Facebook ad, and you'll know generally is the click-through rate going to be healthy, is the cost per click in the range that you want. And that's something that a company like GelUp or Funded Today, they're experts at that. And if you can make the margins work, then sometimes it's good to just let them handle the paid advertising and you try to do all the organic advertising. And that generally works well too, because when you're talking to organic ad channels, it's much more genuine to hear from the founding team because you feel like you have a direct line of communication. There are companies that you can hire to do press. We've never used those. They definitely have connections with bigger media sources, but at the same time, you could also Google or find journalists on Twitter who work at those sources, tweet at them, you find their email, build a compelling pitch, and they appreciate that the actual company's reaching out. So that's kind of launching. Another thing is cross-posting with other campaigns. That's a big thing. The Kickstarter community is really a community. They're definitely, the backers they're super backers who back hundreds of campaigns. They enjoy seeing a company go from zero to a real company. Other campaigns who have been through this, when they reach out or when new companies launching new Kickstarters reach out to them, there's that mutual understanding like, hey, we used to be here, we totally get the place you're in. So reach out to similar brands in your category. So we were in the design category, so we reached out to other companies that had already launched. They had, maybe they were ending their campaign, they had 200 backers, and we were just launching. So they would mention us when we launched, and then when we finished, we'd mention them. That kind of cross-collaboration goes a long way, especially on your first Kickstarter. And that's also a strategy you should do during your campaign. So every update at the beginning, we tried to leverage cross-collaboration. So we mentioned 3 companies in the update, and then those 3 companies would mention you, and it kind of go exponentially from there. So during the campaign also, I think it's really important to have momentum. You definitely will have a spike in the beginning, and then you'll kind of reach a lull. And that lull can last 2 to 3 weeks, because if you're doing a 30-day campaign, you launch, the first 2 to 3 days are exciting, and then if you just reached out to 100 family and friends, then that traction is kind of done. And there are ways to generate momentum, so you can launch a new reward. We had limited edition colors on some of ours that we would launch halfway through. We would announce that there's a limited quantity of a certain reward. And you need to do that to generate, like, you feel like there's success at every step. And you want the backers to feel that energy too. Your team feels that energy. So that, I think, is very important. And then I'll kind of sort of wrap up with ending, and then I think on the panel, that'd be a good time to talk about actually building the product and executing. But ending the campaign, you want to time your last 3 days to really have a final punch. And so save something for the end. There's a thing called stretch goals that you can have during a campaign, where if you reach 100,000, you'll unlock a feature on your product, or you'll give everyone a free accessory or something like that. You do want to make your backers feel special, because those are the people that are going to be writing your first reviews. Those are the people that are going to be potentially writing negative reviews if you're late. And those first customer reviews are extremely critical. So you do want to make the ending special, and the ending can potentially be some of your best days. Generally, the first or second day or the last 2 days are the biggest days of fundraising. So that's kind of the lifetime of the campaign from beginning to end. That's just the start. I would say most of the work then comes once you have the money, and you have to figure out supply chain, figure out manufacturing, recruit, train. Yep.
How would you recommend spiking it at the end if you've already exhausted your resources?
So it really depends. I mean, I think a general strategy is make sure that the quantity seems like it's running out, and you can control quantity pretty well. So if you have 50 backers and it says 450 left, that's not that exciting. But if you make it 60, 10 left looks pretty good. That's kind of like not a cheap strategy, but like a marketing ploy. But yeah, I would say save something for the end, like a press or a blog or something big. I mean, really at the end of the campaign is when you have leverage. That's when you can go to a press source that maybe didn't reply at the beginning. You're like, hey, we raised $250,000 and we're ending in 2 days. Like, any chance you can get a shout out? So I would definitely reiterate your attempts in the beginning with certain sources. That's sort of all I had to say for now. Does anyone have other questions? Yeah.
How did you manage the relationships with the people when you were that late? Weren't they angry? Did they post negative reviews?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, some of them were really angry. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to remember like what crowdfunding is. If someone had wanted to buy a carbon fiber guitar, they could have done that from an established channel. If they wanted a travel guitar, they could have bought that. And I think the reason why a lot of people participate in the crowdfunding community is because they want to be the first ones to get whatever you're making. So they are in the early adopter type. They want to feel like they helped you get there. And so kind of making those points clear in the updates and really tugging on those heartstrings in those areas is an effective strategy. And really just apologizing as well. And showing that you're committed to progress and that you will eventually get there. I think if you combine all those elements, then people are pretty understanding. And they don't have the expectation that you're going to be on time, really. I mean, in crowdfunding, almost nobody is on time. So, yeah.
So what was the process that you took to find suppliers?
Yeah. So we found some with Alibaba. That was a really good channel for us. We found some through reaching out to friends who had companies and asking them how they did it, and sometimes coincidentally they would know someone who manufactures a certain part. I think if you do have a point of contact that has had a successful supply chain relationship, that is a much better lead than an Alibaba lead. It's kind of hit or miss on Alibaba specifically.
Awesome, everybody give a round of applause.